All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with my friend Shannon Graham. Shannon, welcome. It is so awesome to have you here, man.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'm trying to think. I think you and I originally met. Oh man, this is going to go back. I don't remember though. I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was at one of Giovanni's original Archangel events. I believe that's where you and I met. I think it was at the one in Hollywood when it was right off the Sunset Strip there. And that's where you and I first met. And I don't remember that year that was, but it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a while. I'm gonna say at least 10 years.
Yeah, it's been, and those events have just seriously grown for Geo too.
Yeah.
So a little shout out to Geo there, and because for the work that he's done, and also just, I mean, that was a venue where you and I got to connect, and and a pretty long-term great friendship came from that. And here we are now getting to make kind of a cool impact and just having this conversation today.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is just kind of start off by turning it over to you, Shannon, and let you share a little bit of background on what you do, on who you serve, on what inspires you to do what you do, and just set some context and let the listeners know, who is Shannon Graham and what are you all about, Shannon?
Yeah. Well, so I have been in the coaching and leadership development space now for a little over 20 years.
Okay.
And I have three major projects that I am focused on right now. The first is a program called Legacy, which is for it's for founders that want to make an impact in the world to the degree that it's something that's never been done before. So, for example, a couple of the projects I've worked on was the world's first platform for ending video game addiction. Another one was a guy who wanted to raise the GDP of his home country by raising the empowerment or the confidence of the tech entrepreneurs in that country. So that's Legacy is all about, how do we make an impact in a way that's never been done before? What spun off of that was a new program that I launched last year called Second Summit. And that is specifically for founders who have exited businesses, taken some time off, and they've woken up, they realize they're not completely fulfilled. And even though financially they could, quote unquote, sail off into the sunset, they don't feel done. There's something in their heart that's calling them to not just sit on some boards and do some philanthropy and do some angel investing, but to really do something big. And so I created that program specifically for them. And then this year, I launched a space company called Astronaut, which is focused on bringing civilization towards a higher expression of its potential via bringing change makers and visionary entrepreneurs to space. And then taking the kind of unprecedented inspiration that comes from that and channeling it into some type of world-changing impact.
Wow, very cool. Yeah, it's been really cool to watch as you just kind of do your thing and make your impact in the world, and just continue, it's pretty amazing to watch. I'll just leave it at that. And so,
Thanks,
okay,
Kev.
so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, we'll go ahead and shift gears. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person. And Shannon, I'm really excited to hear your story, your experience around this, because I know it's going to be powerful.
Yeah. Well, there's likely a handful of people that I could name.
Okay.
You know, one of the, I'll tell a quick story about a guy that most people know, whose name is Tony Robbins. I have only just kind of briefly interacted with Tony in real life, but his material changed my life. Being introduced to his material made a big difference for me when I was young. So I just want to say that because it's really true, and I wouldn't be who I am today without that.
Okay.
But as far as an actual person, there's an amazing entrepreneur whose name is Mike Littman. And he is an OG entrepreneur, internet marketer. And I was just getting started in the coaching industry. And he had the idea to create the world's first completely online life coaching certification program.
Okay.
And he reached out to me, and we together created a program for coaches to become certified to do coaching. And through that relationship, he taught me so much, because I was so early in my entrepreneur career, and he had been at it for a while. So he was really more like a mentor to me. You know, we were partnered on this project together, but really I was the major beneficiary, if you will, because I just learned so much. I learned so much about mindset and being an entrepreneur and taking risks and just really all those things that I definitely would not be where I am today without that relationship.
Gotcha. So if you think back on this relationship, I mean, and when you mentioned his name, I was just like, well, I have heard that name, and I'm like, that goes back a ways. I got to look and like see what I can find on Mike and just try to recall, because I'm like, what I do know is that name goes back a ways.
Yeah.
And but if you look at the relationship that you and Mike have had, and I'm just curious, you know, when you look back on that, what are one or maybe two things that transpired as a direct result of that relationship that, you know, hands down never would have happened if not for this relationship that you and Mike have had these years?
Well, I mean, in a more macro sense, a lot of the initiatives and projects that I've done, like the legacy program, for example,
Okay.
would not exist. Because one of the mindsets that he helped teach me was this idea of you don't have to get it right, you just have to get it going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist by nature. And as you know, if you're a perfectionist, oftentimes that means your work never gets to see the light of day, because it's never perfect. And it's actually a funny story, because I actually knew who Mike Littman was before he reached out to me. So he was kind of like a big deal in my eyes. And I remember watching his early YouTube videos, and they were not great. And he would probably be one of the first people to admit that. It kind of like the early Gary Vee stuff. It was like not very good.
Okay.
But the point was, he was doing it. He was getting himself out there, and he was getting views, and he was generating leads, and he was doing business, and he was making money. So while there was a part of me that was kind of laughing at him, like, oh man, look at this guy, like his video sucks, and he's kind of stumbling on his words, and like, you know, it's not perfect, it's not really that great. Then I'm simultaneously like, well, he's helping people and he's making money, so like, he's doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a shift that happened, which was like, and then I actually met him and got to see like, that's just how he is. He's willing to just like go for it and get it out there at a B plus and refine it and make it better as you go. But you know, if you don't start, then you never start. And so just that idea of getting going, you don't have to get it right, but you got to get it going.
Yeah.
That was a huge one for me.
Very good. Very good. So drawing on that, you know, so now let's go forward from there and give me an example of probably one of these projects that you have put out there now that you might not have put out there if you weren't coming from this place of like, okay, just get it going. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And what kind of impact has that already had at this point as a result of you decide, okay, I'm just going to get it out there?
Well, all three of the current projects that I am doing didn't exist before that. Like, so for example, you know, the legacy program that I created, I wanted to charge an amount of money that I had never charged before.
Okay.
I wanted the business model to look like something that really didn't exist in the coaching industry. I wanted to work with a different type of client than I had in the past. So that was completely different. I wanted to work on projects that was a caliber that I had never worked on before. So that's just one project. Astronaut, there's not a space company on the planet right now that exists in the way that Astronaut does, in a way that focuses on using space as a tool for change makers, that also incorporates neurofeedback and leadership and cryptocurrency and NFTs and all, like nothing like that has ever existed. And so that spirit of you don't have to get it right, you just have to get it going, has allowed me to bring those things to life. Just this year alone, Astronaut is already sending 2 people to space. And
Wow.
so, you know, it's an exciting thing to be able to dream something up.
Yeah.
If you spend any amount of time with me, you'll know that I just dream up things all the time. I have this ability to see reality not as it is, but as it could be. And I can relate that, I can overlay that vision onto different people, onto different business models, onto different potentialities. And so all of these things have never existed before. And had I been stuck on getting it perfect, none of them would exist. And so the people who got to go are getting to go to space, that would never happen. The GDP of an entire country going up as a function of empowering the tech entrepreneurs in that country, that would never happen. So there's just a whole number of things that's like really tangible impact that's happened in the world that would not exist today without that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and you bring up a really important point here. So, because in my previous business, it was a high volume business, meaning we served a lot of people, you know, and we had systems in place and all of that. But now in what I do and in what you do, you know, you and I personally, we don't serve high volumes of people. We very intentionally serve a very specific kind of person, but yet I would argue to say the impact we make today is, I can tell you for sure in my life, the impact I make today is way bigger than it was when I was running the other business for 12 years, even though I served way more people because of the people I serve, because of the impact they already have, because of the footprint they already have, because they're resourceful, they have resources, and because of who they are as people. You know, I, in serving them, get to make this massive impact in this world because of them.
Yeah.
And you're in the same situation because of who you choose to serve. And that's what I really want to, like, I do my dangest to draw that out in these conversations and stuff, because no matter what we do, we get to make a big impact through the relationships that we have in our lives and stuff. And so, and I don't know if you want to expand. I just see I just see your mind is rolling there too. So,
Well, I think if you really want to get into that piece of the conversation, it really comes down to, in my opinion, responsibility. So
okay.
let's look at that. If you have a desire to make a big impact, like tangible impact, then there is a necessary ego death that must happen, or at least a perspective shift. Meaning,
Okay.
I could sell 10 million copies of my book, and many people would look at that and say, wow, you made such a big impact. You sold your book. Your book is so inspiring. Your book is so cool. Your book is so whatever. You sold that to 10 million people. Wow, that's really great. Well, you and I both know the statistics on that kind of thing. Less than 2% of the people who get that book will get any type of result from it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which means everyone else will likely get no result. And many of the, if there was like 10,000 people listening to this right now, we could do an audience participation thing and say, how many of you have a book on your nightstand that you've been meaning to read for years?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Every single person, myself included.
Yeah.
So yeah, on paper, it kind of looks like a big impact, but there's an ego, or there's a skewed perception of what impact is. Mm-hmm. I had 10,000 people buy my course, and my course is all about empowerment and making your life better. Okay, cool. How many people completed it and tangibly got results from it, right? And so this is what I mean by responsibility. If you have a desire to make a big impact, it comes with a responsibility to bring about that impact in a way that facilitates the highest probability of the deepest impact. So let's look at that. Highest probability. What is that? So if I can make impact a million different ways, but what's the way that creates the highest probability of the deepest impact? Yeah. Yeah. When you begin to think about it in that context, it narrows the field significantly. Yes. Now, all of a sudden, the book and the course and the this and the that maybe don't become the focus. It's not to say that those things aren't good. There's plenty of books that have changed people's lives, and they're great. But having that be the pillar in which your impact is based on is probably not the most responsible way to do it. Yeah. And so it really truly is about responsibility. If I'm going to be a steward of this impact, then I must kind of parent it in a way that is the most responsible, in the way that, like just think about the end user. I can do something in the world that will help that person. What's the thing I can do that's going to have the highest probability that they experience real true impact? You begin to use that as a lens, as a frame for how you think about doing impact, and it changes everything. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah. And I know for me in my own life, it's removed a lot of noise. It's removed this notion that we have to serve many people in order to make a big impact. In fact, it got a whole lot quieter, a whole lot easier, a whole lot more rewarding when I pared down and came to the realization that, oh, I just want to work with what you use the term change makers, with those people, Right.
And
Well, and it's in when you work with change makers specifically, it's the impact is exponential
yeah, yeah,
because they already have a desire to create impact. And so if you think of them, like if you take an enormous boulder and you drop it into the ocean, it's going to create a wave. Well, if you can help them elevate their status, then the amount of gravity that's created or the amount of impact that's created as a function of that rock hitting the water, the wave becomes bigger.
sure.
And so it's actually a very intelligent way to create impact because you become this like multi-pronged catalyst for impact in industries that likely you might not know anything about, but
Yep.
you end up creating more impact in that industry simply as a function of elevating that change maker in that space.
Yeah. Wow.
It's
What a
pretty
great
cool.
analogy. What a great analogy. So this has been deep, Shannon. This has been really good. So I want to really thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today. And for anybody listening to this that's going, dang, Kev, I really like that Shannon guy, man. I like the way Shannon shows up. How can they find out more about the work that you're doing, Shannon, the impact you're making in this world?
Really where I spend a good amount of my time online is either Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where
Very
you can
good.
find me.
Very good. Awesome. So any last words you want to share before we call it a wrap?
Well, I think it's just a reminder that the point of this show is to really talk about the value of relationships.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. I meant to say this, so I want to make sure I say it before we wrap up today, which is my life, my career, my impact have all moved forward faster in the last 36 months as a function of me embracing relationships in some way, shape, or form than the last 15 years.
Wow. Wow.
And
Okay.
I can say that with confidence, and I can say those numbers realistically because I know specifically what the impact and the growth and the momentum has been in the last 15 years compared to the last 36 months. And it's not even, you can't even compare them.
Wow.
And me being the scientist that I am, I will pull things apart and understand, well, what's the difference? Why has the last 36 months been so different? There's been a number of things I've done personally that have helped and contributed to that.
Okay.
But by and large, one of the biggest things is leaning into, at an unprecedented level, relationships.
Wow. Wow. I'll tell you, that's powerful, Shannon. I mean, I'm really excited for you. I'm really excited for the people who have been on the receiving end of receiving that gift from you, the gift of you leaning into these relationships and the people in your life. And I can only imagine what's going to continue to unfold as you just continue moving forward, being you, man. And I have long known and felt that relationships are the most valuable asset we possess as entrepreneurs. And of course, the whole goal of this podcast is twofold. To give people like yourself the opportunity to share your story and your experience around this. But for the listeners, I just want to inspire them to create more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their lives. And I'll tell you, we have definitely achieved that today. And so I want to thank you for the role that you played in helping facilitate that. And it was just awesome catching up with you, man. And so thank you. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Thanks, Kev. You're welcome.